So Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. Christopher Olberg's book was brought to the screen before Jumanji, a film which some people have very great fondness for. I don't. The thing I remember primarily about the first Jumanji was when DVD first started, 98, sometime around that. Jumanji was one of the first things that was out on DVD that everybody watched because you watched it because, oh, look at the picture quality, that's great. You didn't watch it because it was a particularly brilliant movie. And then there's a sort of related, Zathura space adventure film, all that stuff. Anyway, so now we have a new version of Jumanji, which is it's a continuation of the story. It is a sequel, but doesn't feel like it sort of plays like a sequel. So the story is, at the beginning, the Jumanji box appears. Somebody comes across it and says, "Who on earth plays board games?" It promptly turns into a video game with transportative results. Then, a little bit further forward, many years in the future, a group of teenagers find themselves in what can only be described as a breakfast club style detention. So you've got Spencer, who is kind of nerdy. You've got Fridge, who is the sports guy. You've got Martha, who is studious and introverted. You have Bethany, who's the kind of queen bee who's addicted to Instagram. They are told that they have to spend their detention clearing out this basement, and they find what they refer to as, it's like an old Nintendo game. They plug it in, and it starts playing. So rather than do what they have to do, they decide they're going to play around with this, and they all have to pick avatars. Next thing you know, they are swooped into the world of Jumanji, and they have all come out as their avatars, which are not entirely what they expected. Here's a clip.
Where's the rest of me?
Fridge?
Yeah, I'm Fridge. Who are you?
It's me, Spencer.
Who is she?
Martha?
Why am I wearing half a shirt and shorts in the jungle?
I think we got sucked into Jumanji, and we become the avatars we chose.
So that means...
Bethany?
Oh, wait, Bethany. Don't look at it!
No!
I'm an overweight middle-aged man.
Well, I don't have my Claritin, and all I see around here is pollen.
Well, I don't have the top 2 feet of my body!
I thought it was really funny. Did you not find that funny?
I can, if I'd seen it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, okay, fine. So basically, Dwayne Johnson as Dr. Smolder Bravestone, one of his qualities is that he smolders all the time. Kevin Hart as Franklin Moose Finbar, they misread the central word. Martha becomes Ruby Roundhouse. Which is Karen Gillan, and then Dr. Shelley Oberon, which is the queen bee, who is then transported into the body of Jack Black and says, "I can't believe it, I'm an overweight middle-aged man." They then have to do the usual thing about playing the levels of the game in order to get home. So there's a kind of Wizard of Oz theme going on. You're in a world that you didn't want to be in. You have to do a certain number of things. You have to complete quests in order to get back home, which is also a kind of standard video game. On the way, they meet non-player characters who just exist to explain the plot and to explain the plot in sort of rhyming. Plus, there are adventures involving helicopters and marauding animals and all the usual stuff that you expect from Jumanji. So whereas the first Jumanji, Robin Williams comes out and all these things come out into Branford. So you get the elephants and the rhinos, marauding through the real world. In this, you kind of invert it and they go inside the game. In the past, movies which attempt to do that have been pretty uneven fare. And I went into Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle slightly trepidatious because, as I said, I wasn't a particular fan of the original. And I was really surprised by how much I liked it and how funny it was. Number of reasons. Firstly, it has some lovely performances. I mean, Dwayne Johnson is just brilliant. And Dwayne Johnson playing a nerdy bloke who finds himself in the body of Dwayne Johnson, whose main power is that he has smouldering intensity, is really, really well done. Casting Jack Black as the teenage queen bee is a kind of stroke of genius because Jack Black is a really good physical comedian. And we had lots of body swap movies which have done that kind of, it's not just body swap, but gender swap movies as well. And it plays with it in a way which is playful and a bit cheeky and a little bit teenagery, but also done in a way which is affectionate and not crude or vulgar within sort of certain parameters. So that's the first thing. It's really funny. And Karen Gillan is really terrific. You said that there'd been somebody on Twitter saying, "Oh yeah, it turns out that if you're a bloke, you're dressed from head to foot in camouflages, whereas if you're a woman, you're dressed like this." That's the whole point. The whole point is, she says, "Why am I dressed like this? This makes I am walking around the jungle basically in a bikini. And why is it that my skill is dance fighting? Is dance fighting even what is dance fighting?" So all that's going on, and it's fairly self-aware. Second thing is, it has loads of action set pieces that are, involve CG and, set in sort of actual locations. Hawaii, I think, was where they did the location work. And the action set pieces are done rather well. There was a couple of moments when I found myself, gripping the side of my chair. I mean, you obviously, again, within certain parameters, you do assume that certain things are going to be okay. But because one of the keys of the game is that each player has a certain number of lives, it is possible for people to not survive things. Even in the trailer, you see that happen, that one of the main characters gets eaten by a hippo, even in the trailer, because they all have a certain number of game lives to play. And the other thing is that all the way through it, although it's a film made by people who clearly hold the original Jumanji in greater reverence than I do, it's a film that makes sense in and of itself. Like, the group dynamic makes sense. The thing about everyone's weaknesses and everyone's strengths, and at the very beginning they're told by the headmaster that what you have to do is you have to decide who you are and what you want to be and who you want to be. And of course, during the course of the movie, that's the story that played out, which is, very formulaic. So in many ways, it's not breaking the mold, but what it's doing is it's doing that well. It's doing it coherently. It's doing it in a way that obeys its own rules. I did laugh a lot. I mean, I really hadn't expected to, but I really did laugh a lot at the way in which they use pop music, at the way in which the dialogue crackles, at the fact that Dwayne Johnson, I mean, you've interviewed Dwayne Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Who, of course, was the voice of Maui in Moana, right?
Okay.
And, he is a really charming screen presence. There is so little to dislike about his screen presence. And then when you see him playing somebody who's basically a nerdy, skinny guy who cannot get their hat on about the fact that they're walking around in Dwayne Johnson's enormous body, it's very funny. So it's funny, it's lightweight and frothy, but it's written well enough that it delivers the gags it has to do. And it's also executed well enough that the action sequences work. And I was really surprised, but I came out with a big smile on my face.